Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Coffee Consultants Mastermind Group. If you're interested in becoming a coffee consultant, take a look at the link in the show notes below. Today on the podcast, we are talking about the thing I'm hearing a lot of people say, who are professionals in the industry, and they eventually get there. After a couple of years in the industry, and that's the statement of, I'm bored of being a barista. I don't want to be a barista the rest of my life. Now, me personally, I loved being a barista. I haven't been a barista for a long time, probably 5 years. And if I was ever to go back into the cafe, that's the only thing I would do. Why? Because my passion is hospitality. My passion is preparing drinks for people, particularly coffee drinks, but preparing an experience for people that brings them joy and being able to show them hospitality. That's the superpower of a barista in my mind. Now, it's not for everybody. People find it as an entry-level position into a cafe that is hopefully going to take them somewhere else. But what usually ends up happening is that they get bored of doing that, and they think, I'm bored of doing this. I don't want to do it the rest of my life, but I don't know what else to do. And my employer isn't really showing me what to do next. So this is where what I say to people when we run our barista mapping courses, this is where I say, know what's coming as the end goal. What I mean by that is, where do you want to be now that you've been a barista? Where do you want to see yourself end up in 10 years from now? Is it that you would like to be a coffee roaster? Is it that you'd like to be a business owner? Is it that you would like to become a coffee writer? Is it any multiple things that you can do? And please consider in your decision-making process, technology. Consider where we're going. Consider what's happening with society. Don't make decisions on where 10 years from now is going to be for you without considering what the world is going to look like in 10 years. This is a mistake a lot of people make. So, if you're bored being a barista, what's some things that you can do to help change your mindset around your life or your career being boring? An important thing is have a chat with your employer. Let them know that you feel that you have come to the heights of what you can learn as a barista, and ask if there are any opportunities for where you can grow in the workplace that you're in. This will be important because if your employer is looking to find positions for you and promote you and challenge you and do those things for you, you can stay in that workplace. But if they're not, it will give them an indication as well as you a clear understanding. Because remember, clarity is super important, whether you're the business owner or the employee. But it is something that you need to know what the next step is. Now, when we talk about career maps in Map It Forward, whether it be for a barista, a roaster, a small business owner, whatever, but when we talk about these things, it's all about taking the steps that you need to get to where it is that you want to get to. If you found that you've reached a ceiling where you're at and you are legitimately bored being a barista, what I want you to figure out, as we said, first of all, should you stay in the workplace that you're in? And if you should, how can you find career progression in the workplace that you're in? But number 2, are you really bored as a barista? Or is there more challenges ahead for you as a barista that your current workplace cannot provide you with? An example of this is you thought you always wanted to be a barista, you joined this cool coffee company, or you joined your local coffee company and you became a barista. You've learned everything that you can learn from there, And what you've realized is there's a different kind of way of brewing coffee that you want to go and learn about, or there's a different philosophy around coffee that you want to go and learn about. So is your boredom as a barista just in the workplace that you're in, or are there more things for you to learn that are not available for you to learn in the current workplace that you're in? It's important to understand that. If you are legitimately done being a barista, planning your next move is going to be super important if you're going to be exiting out of the workplace that you're currently in. There is a way to do this, and there is a way that you should absolutely not do this. So just deciding to no longer show up at work anymore one day is something that happens in our industry quite a lot. Don't do that. It's unfair to the business owner. It's unfair to your coworkers and your customers, but you are doing yourself a disservice, because I assure you, small business owners in a community talk. Relationships are important. Your colleagues may one day be your boss. And if they remember what you did, you won't rise in the industry the way that you potentially could. So thinking about your long-term map could stop you from doing some rather silly things in your career early on in your days. So that's one way not to make the jump from one workplace to another, or from one part of your career to the next. The way you should do this is plan it out. Figure out what the next step is in your journey to get to the ultimate place that you're trying to get to, and find the best possible place that you could land that will cultivate the skill sets that you're looking for. Once you have done this, an important part of what's going to come next is giving yourself the space required to transition. And I know this sounds all very lovely and privileged, etc., etc., etc. Why shouldn't you have this privilege? Why shouldn't you give yourself the space and the time to transition into a new career? This is in your hands. But reacting to something simply because you're bored is the opposite of giving yourself the privilege to transition. Because giving yourself the opportunity to transition into a new position in your career is the definition of proactive career progression. And you deserve that. And getting into a rhythm where you allow yourself to do that is what privileged people do. But this is one of the things that you can do, and a privilege that you can afford yourself by having the right mindset. So this is just a couple of tips on what you could do if you're bored being a barista. There is a plethora of options for you in where you could go moving forward and what direction you could take your career. Being a barista gives you a foundational understanding of some parts of the coffee industry. It tells you about the cafe environment. It tells you about hospitality. It tells you about coffee brewing. It tells you about what it's like to deal with the public and how to show different kinds of hospitality. What it doesn't teach you is how to roast coffee. It doesn't teach you how to create a brand. It doesn't teach you how to engage with the supply chain. It doesn't teach you about different elements of the value chain. It doesn't teach you about dealing with associations and holding cuppings and doing so many different other things that are an option to you. Being a barista may just be the starting point for you, and knowing all the different areas that you want to go into is a part of your challenge building your career. Someone who did this really well is Tara Samuelson, who came on the podcast recently, episode 134, I believe. Check out her episode. She's a really well-traveled person in the industry who has done a number of different things over the span of 12 years and is now getting ready to start fashioning a career as a consultant in the coffee industry. She's awesome. You may find some inspiration from her story and our conversation on the podcast. I hope this has been helpful, friends. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.